March 2024. A forensic laboratory in suburban Illinois. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as technician Sarah Martinez wiped dust from a metal console. Before her sat the engine control unit from a 2015 Ford Focus. The vehicle had been stored on an impound lot for 8 years. Nobody had looked at it in half a decade. Martinez connected diagnostic cables to the ECU. Her screen flickered. Lines of code appeared. GPS coordinates. Timestamps. A complete record of the car's final journey. She leaned closer. The last entry was dated November 5th, 2016. The coordinates pointed to 1847 Riverside Manor Drive, an address in Oakwood Hills, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the county. Before we begin the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. We're really curious where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a rating. Martinez picked up her phone. She dialed Detective Emily Chen from the cold case unit. Chen had requested this analysis 3 months earlier. A long shot on a case that had gone nowhere for nearly a decade. Detective Chen, you need to see this. The GPS data survived. 20 minutes later, Chen stood in the lab. She studied the printout Martinez handed her. The Ford Focus had arrived at Riverside Manor Drive at 8:47 p.m. The engine shut off at 8:49 p.m. The vehicle remained stationary until 8:56 p.m. Then the GPS signal disappeared completely. 9 minutes, Chen said quietly. He was there for 9 minutes. The car belonged to Brian Morelli, an 18-year-old pizza delivery driver. He had vanished on November 5th, 2016. His shift at Antonio's Pizza had started normally. He had taken one final delivery order. He never came back. Brian Morelli grew up in a modest neighborhood 15 miles from Oakwood Hills. His mother, Maria Morelli, worked double shifts as a nurse at Community General Hospital. Brian was her only child. His father had left when Brian was 3 years old. Maria worked constantly to provide for her son. Brian understood this. He never complained. When he turned 16, he got a part-time job at a grocery store. He gave half his paycheck to his mother. In September 2016, Brian started college. He enrolled at Prairie State Community College, engineering program. He attended classes in the morning. In the evenings, he delivered pizzas for Antonio's Pizza. The tips helped pay tuition. His manager at Antonio's was Kyle Jensen, 32 years old. Kyle had worked at the pizzeria for 7 years. He started as a driver himself. By 2016, he managed the evening shift. Kyle liked Brian. The kid was reliable, always on time, polite to customers, never complained about long drives to the suburbs. Brian appreciated that Kyle gave him the better delivery zones, the wealthy neighborhoods, better tips. On November 5th, Brian arrived at work at 5:30 p.m., Saturday evening, the busiest night of the week. Kyle was already there, organizing delivery bags behind the counter. "Hey, Brian, good to see you." "Thanks, Kyle. Anything special tonight?" "Just the usual chaos." "Oh, your mom's birthday is coming up, right?" Brian nodded. "Next week, Tuesday. You get her something?" "Not yet. Trying to save up?" Kyle smiled. "Don't worry. Saturday tips are always good. You'll get there." The evening progressed normally. Orders came in steadily. Brian made 5 deliveries between 6:00 and 7:30 p.m. He returned each time with the empty thermal bag. He logged his tips in the notebook he kept in his car. At 7:45 p.m., an online order came through. The computer system at Antonio's pinged. Kyle checked the screen. Large order. 3 pizzas, garlic bread, 2-liter soda, delivery address, 1847 Riverside Manor Drive. Kyle whistled. Oakwood Hills. Nice. But what caught his attention was the tip amount. $100. Prepaid through the website. Kyle printed the receipt. He walked to where Brian was reorganizing his delivery bag. "Hey, Brian. Got something special for you?" Brian looked at the receipt. His eyes widened. $100? Are you serious?" "Dead serious. Take it. You've earned it." Brian grinned. "If this is real, I'm buying Mom that necklace she looked at last month." "The silver one?" "Yeah. She'd never buy it for herself." Kyle patted Brian's shoulder. "Then go get it, man. Don't keep them waiting." Brian loaded the pizzas into his thermal bag. He grabbed the receipt and the 2-liter bottle. He walked to his Ford Focus in the parking lot. The car was old but reliable. Maria had helped him buy it 2 years earlier. At 8:10 p.m., Brian pulled out of the parking lot. Kyle watched him go. The evening rush continued. More orders, more drivers. Kyle forgot about Brian's delivery. Until 9:15 p.m. Kyle checked his watch. He frowned. Brian should have been back by now. Oakwood Hills was 20 minutes away. Even with traffic, a delivery there took 45 minutes maximum. Kyle called Brian's cell phone. It rang 4 times. Voicemail. He called again at 9:30. Voicemail again. At 9:45, Kyle started to worry. He called a 3rd time. Still no answer. By 10:30 p.m., Kyle called Maria Morelli. She answered on the 2nd ring. "Mrs. Morelli?" "It's Kyle from Antonio's. Is Brian home?" Maria's voice was calm but puzzled. "No. He's working tonight. Isn't he with you?" "He took a delivery at 8:10. He hasn't come back. I can't reach him." A pause, then Maria's voice changed. Sharper now. "What do you mean you can't reach him?" "His phone goes to voicemail. I'm sure it's nothing. Maybe his car broke down." "Brian would call." "I know. That's why I'm calling you." "I'm coming there." Maria arrived at Antonio's Pizza at 11:15 p.m. She walked through the door, her nurse's scrub still on from her earlier shift. Kyle met her at the counter. "Any word?" she asked. Kyle shook his head. "Nothing. I tried calling 6 more times." "What was the address?" 1847 Riverside Manor Drive, in Oakwood Hills. "Who placed the order?" Kyle checked the computer. "Online order. Name listed as D. Harrington." Maria pulled out her own phone. She dialed Brian's number. Voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. "I'm calling the police," she said. At 11:47 p.m., 2 patrol officers arrived at Antonio's Pizza. They took down the information. Missing person. 18 years old. Last seen leaving work at 8:10 p.m. Destination, Oakwood Hills. The officers were polite but not alarmed. "He's 18. Technically an adult. Could be anywhere. Maybe he met up with friends." Maria's voice was steel. "My son would call. Something is wrong." "We'll look into it, ma'am. Give it until morning. Most missing persons turn up within 24 hours. But Maria knew. A mother knows. Something had happened to her son. The next morning, November 6th at 7:20 a.m., a security guard at Riverside Shopping Center made a discovery. A blue Ford Focus sat in the far corner of the parking lot. The guard noticed it because the car had been there all night. He had seen it when his shift started at midnight. The guard approached the vehicle. He peered through the windows. A thermal delivery bag sat on the back seat. Inside the bag, he could see pizza boxes. He called the police. Officers arrived at 7:45 a.m. They ran the license plate. The car was registered to Maria Morelli, the same name from the missing person report filed the previous night. The officers opened the unlocked car. The keys were in the ignition. The thermal bag contained 3 pizza boxes. The pizzas were cold and congealed. The 2-liter soda bottle sat on the passenger seat, unopened. They found Brian's notebook on the center console. The last entry read, "Riverside Manor, $100 tip, mom's necklace." There was no sign of Brian Morelli. At 8:30 a.m., Detective Robert Sullivan was assigned to the case. He was a veteran investigator with the county sheriff's department, 23 years on the force. He had handled dozens of missing person cases. Sullivan drove to Maria Morelli's apartment. She answered the door immediately. She had not slept. Her eyes were red but dry. She was past tears. Now, she wanted answers. "Mrs. Morelli, I'm Detective Sullivan. I need to ask you some questions about Brian." They sat at her kitchen table. Sullivan took out his notepad. "When did you last speak to Brian?" "Yesterday morning, before I left for work. Around 6:30 a.m. "How did he seem?" "Normal, happy. He mentioned he had class in the afternoon and work in the evening." Any problems lately? School, work, friends? No. Brian is a good kid. He studies hard, works hard. No trouble. Girlfriend? No, he's focused on school and work. Does he have enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt him? Maria's voice cracked slightly. Brian doesn't have enemies. Everyone likes him. Sullivan made notes. He had heard this before. Parents always thought their children were perfect. But Sullivan had learned that everyone had secrets, even good kids. The car was found at Riverside Shopping Center. That's about 4 miles from the delivery address. Any idea why he'd go there? No. That doesn't make sense. Brian would complete the delivery and come straight back. Sullivan showed her a map. The delivery was supposed to be here, at 1847 Riverside Manor Drive. But his car was found here, at this shopping center. Maria studied the map. That's not on the way back to Antonio's. It's in the opposite direction. Exactly. Sullivan visited Antonio's Pizza that afternoon. He interviewed Kyle Jensen in the back office. Kyle looked exhausted. He had not slept either. "Tell me about the order," Sullivan said. Kyle pulled up the computer records. Online order came in at 7:45 p.m. 3 pizzas, garlic bread, soda. Delivery to 1847 Riverside Manor Drive. Customer name, D. Harrington. $100 tip prepaid. That's unusual, right? $100 tip. Very unusual. That's why I gave the delivery to Brian. I wanted him to have it. Sullivan made notes. Walk me through what happened after Brian left. Kyle described the evening, how Brian loaded the pizzas, how he seemed excited about the tip, how he left at 8:10 p.m. When did you realize something was wrong? Around 9:15. He should have been back. I called his phone. No answer. Did Brian ever mention anyone bothering him, following him, anything strange? Kyle hesitated. Not bothering him exactly, but what? A few weeks ago, Brian mentioned that some customers in the rich neighborhoods asked weird questions. What kind of questions? Personal stuff. Like, did he live alone? Did he have a girlfriend? What time did he usually get off work? That kind of thing. Sullivan leaned forward. Did he mention any specific addresses? No, he just said it made him uncomfortable. But he needed the tips, so he was always polite. Sullivan wrote this down. Did you ever notice anyone suspicious? Hanging around the parking lot? Watching the drivers? No, nothing like that. That evening, Sullivan drove to 1847 Riverside Manor Drive. Oakwood Hills was exactly what he expected. Massive houses, manicured lawns, long driveways. Each property sat on 2 or 3 acres. Number 1847 was a white colonial-style mansion, tall columns, 3-car garage. A wrought iron fence surrounded the property. Sullivan pulled up to the gate. He pressed the intercom button. A voice answered. Male. Young. Yes? This is Detective Sullivan with the County Sheriff's Department. I need to speak with you about an incident last night. A pause. What kind of incident? A pizza delivery driver went missing. Our records show he had a delivery to this address. Another pause. Longer this time. Come to the front door. The gate buzzed open. Sullivan drove up the curved driveway. The house was even more impressive up close. He estimated its value at well over $2 million. A man answered the door. Late 20s. Tall, athletic build, dark hair. He wore jeans and a casual button-down shirt. I'm David Harrington. I own this house. Detective Robert Sullivan. I'm investigating the disappearance of Brian Morelli. He's a pizza delivery driver. He had an order for this address last night around 8:30 p.m. David's expression was neutral. I didn't order any pizza. The order was placed online. The name on the account is D. Harrington. That's my name, but I didn't order anything. I was home alone last night, working. You didn't see a blue Ford Focus? Young man carrying pizzas? David shook his head. No. I was in my office. It's on the 2nd floor back of the house. I wouldn't see the driveway from there. Sullivan studied him. David seemed calm. Too calm. Mr. Harrington, this is a serious matter. A young man is missing. If he came to this address, I need to know. I understand. But I'm telling you, I didn't order pizza, and I didn't see anyone. Do you have a security system? Yes. Can I see the footage from last night? David hesitated. Do you have a warrant? Not yet, but I can get one. Then get one. I'm sorry about the missing driver, but I didn't have anything to do with it. Sullivan left the property. He sat in his car at the end of the driveway. Something felt off. David Harrington was too composed, too quick to ask about a warrant. Back at the station, Sullivan ran a background check on David Harrington, age 28, no criminal record. He worked as an IT consultant, remote work. In 2014, his uncle had died and left him $8 million. David had bought the Oakwood Hills mansion in 2015. Sullivan also discovered something interesting. David Harrington had attended Riverside High School, graduated in 2006. So had Kyle Jensen. The next morning, Sullivan called Kyle back to the station. Kyle, you went to Riverside High, correct? Kyle nodded. Yeah, graduated in 2006. Do you know David Harrington? Kyle's face changed. A flicker of something. Anger. Fear? Yeah, I know him. Were you friends? No. Kyle's voice was flat. But you knew each other. We were on the football team together, that's all. How well did you know him? Kyle looked away. Well enough. What does that mean? Kyle was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. David was a bully. He made my life hell in high school. He and his friends, they thought it was funny. Sullivan leaned back. And now, 8 years later, a pizza delivery driver goes missing after an order to David's house. An order placed with a $100 tip. And you're the one who sent Brian on that delivery. Kyle's eyes widened. Wait, are you saying I had something to do with this? Did you? No. I sent Brian because the tip was good. I wanted him to have it. I didn't know it was David's address until after. You didn't recognize the address when you saw the order? I've never been to David's house. I didn't know where he lived. Sullivan watched Kyle carefully. The man seemed genuinely distressed, but something still did not add up. Over the next 2 weeks, the investigation expanded. Volunteers searched wooded areas near Oakwood Hills. Divers checked ponds and reservoirs. The FBI was consulted. Brian's photo appeared on news broadcasts across the state. Maria Morelli held a press conference. She stood in front of cameras, her voice steady despite her pain. My son is missing. Someone knows what happened to him. Please, if you have any information, come forward. But no useful tips came in. Brian Morelli had simply vanished. By December 2016, the case was stalling. David Harrington had provided his phone records voluntarily. They showed no calls to Antonio's Pizza, no online orders. His credit card statements showed no pizza purchases. The warrant for his security footage came through. The recording showed the front gate and driveway. At 8:48 p.m. on November 5th, a blue Ford Focus appeared briefly in the frame. It stopped at the gate. Then at 8:51 p.m., it drove away. David had told the truth. He had not opened the gate. Brian had arrived, waited, then left. But then why did the GPS data show the car staying until 8:56 p.m.? And why was the car found 4 miles away at a shopping center? The case grew cold. Months passed, then years. Maria Morelli refused to give up. She created a Facebook page. Find Brian Morelli. It accumulated 50,000 followers. She posted updates. She kept her son's story alive. She also did something else. Every year, she submitted a petition to the evidence department. She requested that Brian's car be preserved, not sold, not destroyed, kept as evidence. Most cold cases saw their evidence disposed of after 5 years, but Maria's petitions worked. The Ford Focus remained in storage. In January 2024, Detective Emily Chen transferred to the cold case unit. She had worked homicide for 6 years. She was good at her job, methodical, patient. Chen's brother had worked as a delivery driver in college. He told her stories about the risks, the late-night deliveries, the isolated addresses. When Chen saw the Morelli file, Something clicked. She requested the case files. She read every report, every interview, every dead-end lead. Then she made a call to the forensics lab. "This is Detective Chen, Cold Case Unit. I have a 2015 Ford Focus in evidence. Case number 2016-7743. I need the engine control unit analyzed." The technician sounded confused. "The ECU? That's unusual. What are you looking for?" "GPS data, timestamps, anything the computer recorded. That car's been sitting for 8 years." "I know. Can you do it?" "I can try." 3 months later, Sarah Martinez called Chen with the results. The GPS data had survived. Coordinates, timestamps, the last location before the signal died. Chen looked at the address. 1847 Riverside Manor Drive. The same address from the original investigation. But now she had something new. Proof that Brian's car had been there. Proof of exactly how long. And proof that the GPS had been deliberately disabled. Chen called Maria Morelli. "Mrs. Morelli, this is Detective Emily Chen. I'm reopening your son's case. I think I found something." Maria Morelli sat across from Detective Chen in the Cold Case Unit office. 8 years had passed since Brian disappeared. Maria was 53 now. Her hair had gone gray, lines etched her face, but her eyes were sharp, alert. She had never stopped searching. Chen spread printouts across the desk. GPS coordinates, timestamps, technical diagrams. "The engine control unit in Brian's car kept records," Chen explained. "Every modern car does this. Location data, speed. When the engine starts and stops." Maria leaned forward. "And Brian's car arrived at 1847 Riverside Manor Drive at 8:47 p.m. The engine shut off at 8:49 p.m. The vehicle remained stationary until 8:56 p.m. Then the GPS signal stopped completely." "What does that mean?" The signal stopped. "The GPS module was physically disabled. Someone disconnected it or removed it from the dashboard. That requires technical knowledge and tools." Maria's hands trembled slightly. "So someone moved his car after turning off the tracker." "Exactly. The car was found at Riverside Shopping Center, 4 miles from the mansion. But we have no GPS data for that journey because the module was disabled first. David Harrington said Brian never came inside. He said the car drove away at 8:51. Chen nodded. "His security footage supports that timeline. But the GPS data contradicts it. The car stayed at his property for 9 minutes, not 3. So he lied. Someone lied. Or someone else was at that property." Chen drove to Oakwood Hills that afternoon. She parked outside 1847 Riverside Manor Drive. The gate was closed. She pressed the intercom. "Yes?" A male voice. The same voice from 8 years ago. "David Harrington, this is Detective Emily Chen. I need to speak with you about the Brian Morelli case." A long pause. "That case is closed. It's been reopened. New evidence. I can come back with a warrant if you prefer." The gate buzzed open. David Harrington looked older now, 36 years old. His hair had thinned slightly, but he maintained the same athletic build, the same careful composure. Chen sat across from him in the mansion's living room. Expensive furniture, abstract art on the walls, everything immaculate. "Mr. Harrington, I've analyzed the GPS data from Brian Morelli's vehicle. It shows his car was at your property from 8:47 to 8:56 p.m. on November 5th, 2016. 9 minutes. David's expression did not change. "My security footage shows the car leaving at 8:51. I've reviewed that footage, but the GPS data is conclusive. The car remained here for 9 minutes. Then the GPS is wrong. GPS from engine control units is accurate to within meters. It's used in court cases regularly. It's reliable." David leaned back in his chair. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting someone moved that car after disabling the GPS tracker. Someone with technical knowledge. You work in IT consulting, correct?" "I do. But I didn't move anyone's car." "I didn't see anyone that night." "You said you were working in your office. 2nd floor, back of the house." "That's correct. But your security system shows the front gate. What about the rest of the property?" "I have cameras at the front gate, front door, and back door." Can I see all the footage from November 5th, 2016? You saw it already, 8 years ago. I'd like to see it again. David stood. He walked to a cabinet and pulled out a laptop. He opened it and typed for a moment. Then he turned the screen toward Chen. The footage played. Front gate, 8:48 p.m. A blue Ford Focus appeared. It stopped at the gate. The driver's window was down. Chen could see Brian Morelli's face. Young, uncertain. He appeared to be checking an address. Then, at 8:51 p.m., the car drove away. Chen watched carefully. Can I see the front door camera for the same time frame? David clicked through files. The front door footage appeared. Empty driveway. No movement. At 8:48 p.m., the gate opened briefly in the background. At 8:51 p.m., it closed. And the back door? Nothing. Nobody came to the house? Chen studied the screen. Then she noticed something. A shadow. Brief. Crossing a window on the first floor at 8:52 p.m. Who's that? David glanced at the screen. That's me, moving from one room to another. You said you were upstairs. I came down to get coffee. Chen made a note. Mr. Harrington, I need to be direct. A young man disappeared after coming to your property. The evidence suggests someone at this location was involved. If you're protecting someone or hiding something, now is the time to tell me. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. Detective, you should check on Kyle Jensen. The pizza manager? Yes. Kyle and I went to high school together. He has reasons to want to hurt me. What reasons? We weren't friends. We had conflicts. If someone set me up with a fake pizza order, Kyle would be the perfect person to do it. He works at the pizzeria. He has access to the system. He knew Brian. Chen considered this. You think Kyle Jensen sent Brian here deliberately? To frame you? I think it's possible. And what happened to Brian? I don't know. But I had nothing to do with it. Chen left the mansion. She sat in her car and reviewed her notes. David's suggestion was interesting. Kyle Jensen did have access to the ordering system. He had sent Brian on that final delivery, and he had history with David Harrington. She drove to Antonio's Pizza. The restaurant looked the same as it had 8 years earlier. Different staff behind the counter, but the layout was identical. Kyle Jensen no longer worked there. Chen tracked him to a warehouse job across town. She called him and arranged a meeting. They met at a coffee shop. Kyle arrived 10 minutes late. He looked tired. 40 years old now. His face was lined with stress. He ordered black coffee and sat down heavily. You're reopening Brian's case? He asked. Yes. New evidence. After 8 years. What evidence? GPS data from his car. It proves he was at David Harrington's property for 9 minutes, not 3. Kyle absorbed this. So David lied. Someone lied. I need to ask you some questions. Okay. You sent Brian on that delivery, the one to David's address. Yes. I've told this story 100 times. Big tip. I wanted Brian to have it. Did you know it was David's address when you sent him? No. I didn't know where David lived. But you knew him from high school. Yeah, we were on the football team. He made my life miserable. Him and his friends. They thought it was funny to pick on me. What kind of things did they do? Kyle looked away. Stupid high school stuff. Pushing me around, mocking me, locking me in closets. Nothing illegal. Just cruel. And you've held on to that anger? I haven't thought about David in years. Not until Brian disappeared. Chen watched his face. Kyle, I need to ask you something difficult. Did you send Brian to David's house on purpose? To get back at David somehow? Kyle's eyes widened. What? No! Why would I do that? Because you had a grudge. Because David made you suffer. Because you had access to the ordering system and could create a fake order. That's insane. I would never hurt Brian. He was like a little brother to me. But you could have wanted to hurt David. Kyle was silent. His hands shook slightly around his coffee cup. Then he spoke quietly. Okay. Yes. I thought about getting back at David, but not like this. Not by involving Brian. How then? Kyle took a deep breath. About a month before Brian disappeared, I was cleaning out the restaurant. I found a credit card someone had left behind. It was David's. His name was on it. I recognized it from when he came in once to pick up an order. Chen leaned forward. You found David's credit card at the pizzeria? Yeah. He must have dropped it. I kept it. I was going to use it to order a bunch of stuff to his house. Prank deliveries make him deal with a bunch of random charges, stupid revenge, but I never did it. Where's the card now? I don't know. I think I lost it. Or threw it away. I never used it. Chen made notes. Kyle, when did you find this card? Late September, maybe October. I don't remember exactly. And you never used it? No. But someone placed 15 online orders to David's address over 6 months, all paid with his credit card. Kyle's face went pale. 15? Yes. Small orders mostly. Testing. Then on November 5th, a large order with a $100 tip. I didn't place those orders, but you had his card. I told you I lost it, or threw it away. Chen studied him. Kyle looked genuinely distressed. Either he was telling the truth or he was an excellent liar. Kyle, I need you to think carefully. Between late September and November, did anyone else have access to that card? Did you show it to anyone? Did you leave it anywhere? Kyle thought for a moment. I kept it in my locker at work, in my jacket pocket, but what? The lockers don't lock. Anyone could have gone through them. Chen felt a shift in the investigation. If someone else had access to David's stolen credit card, they could have placed the orders. They could have set up the entire situation. Who else worked at Antonio's in October 2016? Kyle listed names. Most were college students, part-time workers. Chen wrote them all down. Then Kyle added something. Actually, there was someone else. Not an employee, but she came around a lot. Who? David's sister, or half-sister. I don't remember her name. She picked up orders sometimes. Said she was staying with David. Chen's pulse quickened. David has a sister? Yeah. I remember because when I saw her, I realized she must be living at his house. She'd come in, order pizzas, pay cash. She came in maybe 4 or 5 times in October and November. What did she look like? Late 20s. Brown hair, thin, kind of intense. Always on her phone. Chen left the coffee shop immediately. She drove back to her office and pulled up property records. David Harrington. Single occupant listed. No mention of a sister. She ran a background check on David. Parents deceased. 1 sibling. Nicole Harrington. Adopted sister. 3 years younger than David. Chen dug deeper. Nicole's records were troubling. Expelled from medical school in 2012. Psychiatric evaluations. A sealed juvenile record. Multiple complaints filed against her during college. Harassment. Disturbing behavior toward classmates. After their uncle died in 2014, David had inherited everything. But he had set up a trust fund for Nicole. $2,000 per month. The trust documents indicated Nicole had special needs requiring ongoing support. Chen called David Harrington. Mr. Harrington, you didn't mention you have a sister. A long silence on the other end. That's private family business. Not when it involves a missing person case. Was Nicole living with you in November 2016? Another pause. Sometimes. She stayed with me on and off. Was she there on November 5? I don't remember. Mr. Harrington, I need to speak with Nicole. Where is she now? I haven't seen her in years. We're not close. I need contact information. I don't have any. She moves around a lot. Chen felt the pieces starting to fit together. Mr. Harrington, if you're protecting your sister, I need to know. This is a serious investigation. David's voice was strained. Nicole has problems, mental health issues, but she wouldn't hurt anyone. I need her last known address. She was in Oregon last time I heard. Maybe Portland, but that was 3 years ago. Chen hung up and immediately contacted the Oregon State Police. She requested a search for Nicole Harrington, last known residence in the Portland area. While waiting, Chen returned to the evidence from Brian's car. The vehicle had been thoroughly processed in 2016, but perhaps something had been missed. She requested the car be brought out of storage. 2 days later, she stood in the evidence garage examining the Ford Focus. The car looked frozen in time. Dust covered the hood. The thermal delivery bag still sat on the back seat. Chen pulled on latex gloves and opened the driver's side door. She searched systematically. Glove compartment, center console, under the seats, behind the visors. Nothing unusual had been noted in the original reports, but Chen was looking for something specific now. Something small. Something that might have belonged to Nicole Harrington. Under the driver's seat, wedged against the frame, Chen found something. A plastic card. She carefully extracted it with tweezers. A hotel key card. Best Western. The magnetic strip was worn, but the room number was embossed on the plastic. Room 237. Chen checked the original evidence logs. This card had not been documented. It must have been missed during the initial processing, easy to overlook in the narrow space beneath the seat. She took the card to the forensics lab. The magnetic strip was too degraded to read, but the embossed information was clear. She called the Best Western Hotel. "This is Detective Emily Chen. I need to check your records for October and November 2016. Room 237. The hotel manager pulled up the old records. Room 237 was occupied from October 28th to November 1st, 2016. Guest name, Kyle Jensen. Chen felt a jolt. Kyle had stayed at a hotel, but he had told her he was at home during that period. He said his wife had kicked him out briefly. She called Kyle back. "Kyle, you stayed at the Best Western in late October 2016? "Yeah, I told you. My wife and I had a fight. I needed space for a few days." "And you checked out on November 4th? "Yeah. So why was your room key found in Brian's car?" Kyle sounded confused. "What? That's impossible. The key card for room 237 was under the driver's seat." "I don't understand. Maybe Brian helped me move some stuff and the card fell out of my bag?" "When did Brian help you move?" "I don't remember exactly. Early November, maybe?" Chen checked her notes. The hotel records showed something else. The key card for room 237 had been used to open the door on November 3rd at 11:40 p.m., 2 days after Kyle checked out. Someone else had used that key card. Someone who had access to it after Kyle left. Chen cross-referenced the dates. November 3rd. That was 2 days before Brian disappeared. The pieces were connecting, but the picture was still incomplete. She requested security footage from the Best Western. The hotel had minimal cameras, but there was one in the main lobby. Chen reviewed the footage from November 3rd. At 11:38 p.m., a woman entered the lobby. Brown hair. Thin build. She walked directly to the elevator without stopping at the front desk. She knew where she was going. The camera angle was poor, but Chen captured a still image. She showed it to Kyle. "Do you recognize this woman?" Kyle studied the image. "That looks like David's sister, the one who came into the pizzeria. Nicole Harrington? I don't know her name, but yeah, that's her." Chen now had a timeline. Kyle had stayed at the Best Western and left his keycard behind. Nicole Harrington had somehow obtained that keycard. She had used it to access the room on November 3rd. 2 days later, Brian Morelli disappeared after a delivery to her brother's house. Chen contacted the Oregon State Police again. She sent them Nicole's information and photograph. She marked the case as urgent. 3 days later, Oregon State Police called back. They had located Nicole Harrington. She was living under her own name in Eugene, Oregon. She worked at a bookstore. No criminal record, no outstanding warrants. "Can you bring her in for questioning?" Chen asked. "We can request she come voluntarily. If she refuses, you'll need extradition paperwork. Try voluntary first." The next day, Nicole Harrington walked into the Eugene Police Department. She agreed to speak with Detective Chen via video conference. Chen studied the woman on the screen. 34 years old now. She looked older, tired. Her hair was pulled back. She wore a simple sweater. Ms. Harrington, thank you for speaking with me. I'm investigating the disappearance of Brian Morelli. He went missing on November 5th, 2016. Do you remember that? Nicole's expression was neutral. I've heard about it. It was on the news back then. You were staying with your brother David in November 2016, correct? Sometimes. I came and went. Were you at his house on November 5th? I don't remember. That was 8 years ago. A pizza delivery driver came to your brother's house that night. He never left. I need to know if you saw him. Nicole was silent for a moment. No, I didn't see anyone. Chen pulled up an image, the hotel key card. This was found in the victim's car. It's a key to a hotel room rented by Kyle Jensen. But records show you used this key on November 3rd, 2016. How did you get it? Nicole's face remained expressionless. I don't know what you're talking about. Ms. Harrington, your brother's credit card was used to place the pizza order that brought Brian Morelli to the house. Kyle Jensen had found that card, but you were seen at the pizzeria multiple times. Did you take the card from Kyle's locker? No. You were at the house when Brian arrived, weren't you? No. Chen leaned closer to the camera. Nicole, I've reviewed your psychiatric records, the complaints from college, the concerns about violent ideation. You've struggled with certain urges. I think something happened that night. I think Brian came to the door and you let him in. Nicole's expression finally changed. A slight smile. Cold. You think a lot of things, detective, but you don't have any proof. I have GPS data, I have the hotel key, I have witness statements. I have your history. Then charge me. Chen felt her frustration rising. Nicole was right. Everything was circumstantial. She had no physical evidence, no body, no direct witness, just a pattern of suspicious behavior and opportunity. Where were you on November 5th, 2016 between 8:30 and 10 hours p.m.? I don't remember. Were you at your brother's house? I don't remember. The interview went nowhere. Nicole gave the same answers. I don't remember. I don't know. Prove it. After 40 minutes, Chen ended the call. She sat in her office staring at her notes. She was close. She could feel it. But close was not enough. She needed something concrete, something that directly tied Nicole to Brian's disappearance. Chen returned to the evidence. She reviewed every report, every photograph, every statement. There had to be something. Then she found it. In the original crime scene report from Brian's car, a notation she had overlooked. Unidentified fiber found on thermal bag. Blue synthetic material sent to lab. Chen tracked down the fiber analysis. In 2016, the lab had determined it was from a fleece jacket. Common material, no DNA, no unique markers. The fiber had been cataloged and forgotten. But now Chen had a new question. Did Nicole own a blue fleece jacket in 2016? She contacted David Harrington again. Mr. Harrington, I need you to think back to November 2016. Did your sister Nicole have a blue fleece jacket? David hesitated. Maybe. I don't remember her clothes. Please try. It's important. She might have. She liked outdoor gear, fleece, hoodies, that kind of thing. It was not much, but it was something. Chen requested a warrant for Nicole's current residence in Eugene. If the jacket still existed, it might contain traces of evidence. Skin cells, hair, something that placed her in Brian's car. The warrant was approved 2 days later. Eugene police executed the search. They found clothing, personal items, a laptop, but no blue fleece jacket. Chen's hopes sank. 8 years was a long time. Nicole would have disposed of anything incriminating. But then the Eugene officers found something else. In a storage box in Nicole's closet, a small metal object wrapped in tissue paper. A badge. A name tag. The kind delivery drivers wore. It read, Brian M. Antonio's Pizza. Chen stared at the photograph the officers sent. The badge was tarnished, but intact. Metal survived. Plastic survived. 8 years in a box. Why would Nicole Harrington have Brian Morelli's work badge? Chen called Eugene police. Bring her in. Now. Full arrest. Nicole Harrington was arrested at her apartment in Eugene on April 18, 2024. She did not resist. She said nothing as officers read her Miranda rights. She simply nodded and held out her wrists for the handcuffs. During the extradition back to Illinois, she remained silent. She stared out the window of the transport van. Her face showed no emotion, no fear, no anger, nothing. Detective Chen watched through the one-way glass as Nicole sat in the interrogation room. Orange jail jumpsuit, hands folded on the metal table, completely still, like a statue. Chen entered the room with a folder. She sat down across from Nicole. She placed the folder on the table but did not open it. Nicole, we found Brian Morelli's work badge in your apartment, in a storage box in your closet. Can you explain that? Nicole looked at her directly. I want a lawyer. That's your right. But I want you to understand something. We have evidence. We have the badge. We have the hotel key card in Brian's car. We have GPS data proving he was at your brother's house. We have your credit card fraud. We have your psychiatric history. This is over. I want a lawyer. Chen nodded. Okay. We'll get you one. But let me tell you what I think happened. I think you took your brother's credit card that Kyle Jensen found. I think you placed those pizza orders. Testing the system, learning the patterns. Then on November 5th, you ordered pizzas to the house. You waited for the driver. You opened the gate remotely. You let him inside. Nicole's expression did not change, but her eyes focused more intently on Chen. You invited him in. Maybe you told him you needed help carrying something. Maybe you said the money was inside. Brian was trusting. He was polite. He wanted that $100 tip. So he followed you. Nicole remained silent. Something happened in that house. An incident. Then you needed to move his car. You drove it to the shopping center. You disabled the GPS first because you understand technology. You learned that from your brother, then you walked back. Or someone picked you up. Still nothing. Chen opened the folder. She pulled out a photograph. The work badge. She slid it across the table. Why did you keep this, Nicole? Why keep a souvenir? Nicole looked at the badge. For the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Not remorse. Something else. Pride? Satisfaction? Then she spoke quietly. I want a lawyer now. Nicole's attorney arrived 6 hours later. Marcus Webb, a public defender from Chicago. 45 years old. Experienced but overworked. He met with Nicole privately for 2 hours. When they emerged, Webb requested a meeting with Chen and the prosecutor. They gathered in a conference room. Webb sat beside Nicole. My client is willing to make a statement, Webb said. But first, we need to discuss terms. The prosecutor, Sarah Lindholm, shook her head. No deals. Not for this. Then my client says nothing. You have circumstantial evidence. A badge. A key card. It's not enough for conviction. Lindholm considered this. Webb was right. The evidence was strong but not conclusive. A good defense attorney could create reasonable doubt. The badge could have been acquired other ways. The key card proved nothing definitive. What does she want? Lindholm asked. Life with possibility of parole after 30 years. No death penalty. We don't have the death penalty in Illinois. Then life with parole after 30. In exchange, she tells you everything. Lindholm looked at Chen. Chen nodded slightly. They needed answers. Maria Morelli deserved answers. Fine, Lindholm said, but the statement has to be complete and truthful. Any lies? The deal is void. Webb consulted with Nicole briefly. She nodded. Then Nicole began to speak. Her voice was calm, detached, like she was describing something that happened to someone else. I took David's credit card from Kyle's locker in September. I'd been going to the pizzeria. I saw Kyle put his jacket in his locker. I waited until he was busy. I went through his pockets. The card was there. Why did you take it? Chen asked. I wanted to use David's money without him knowing. I was testing things, seeing what I could do. You placed the pizza orders? Yes, small ones at first, then bigger. I wanted to see how long it would take for David to notice. He never did. He had so much money he didn't check his statements carefully. And on November 5? Nicole paused. She looked at the table. I placed the big order, the $100 tip. I knew that would get attention. I knew they'd send someone good. Why? I wanted to meet someone. I was alone in that house all the time. David was always working. I wanted company. Chen felt a chill. Company. I opened the gate when the car arrived. I went to the door. He was young, polite. He smiled at me. He said he had pizzas for D. Harrington. I said that was me. Well, my brother? But I was accepting the delivery. What happened then? I told him the money was inside. I asked if he could help me carry something first, just for a minute. I said I'd give him an extra $50. He hesitated, but then he agreed. Nicole's voice remained steady. No emotion, just facts. I brought him to the basement. I told him I needed help moving boxes. He followed me down the stairs. When we got to the bottom, I locked the door behind us. Chen's stomach tightened. The basement door locked? Yes, David had installed it for his home theater, soundproofing, security. He wanted a private space. He didn't know I had a copy of the key. What happened in the basement? Nicole was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke carefully. An incident occurred. Brian tried to leave. I couldn't let him leave. He'd seen too much. He knew where I was. He could identify me. What did you do? I made sure he couldn't leave. How? Nicole looked at her lawyer. Webb spoke. My client exercised her right to use necessary force to protect herself. The situation escalated beyond her control. Chen leaned forward. Nicole, where is Brian? Where is his body? In the basement, under the concrete. The room went silent. Chen felt her breath catch. What do you mean? David had been planning to pour new concrete in the basement. He wanted to finish the floor. The materials were already there. After the incident, I waited until very late. Around 3:00 a.m., I moved Brian's body to the far corner. I mixed the concrete myself. I poured it over him. By morning, it was set. Chen tried to process this. Your brother didn't know? Not at first. He came down 3 days later. He saw the fresh concrete. He asked me what I'd done. I told him I'd finished the floor for him. He was confused but pleased. He thought I was being helpful. When did he find out the truth? About a week later. He saw the news reports about the missing pizza driver. He put it together. The address, the timing, the concrete. He confronted me. What did he say? He was angry, scared. But he didn't call the police. He couldn't. He thought they'd blame him. His house, his credit card, his sister. He thought he'd go to prison too. Chen understood now. David Harrington had been trapped, guilty of covering up a crime, accessory after the fact. He had helped Nicole by staying silent, by providing false statements, by hiding the truth. David helped you move Brian's car? Chen asked. Yes, that night. Around 2 a.m. before I poured the concrete. David drove Brian's car to the shopping center. I followed in my car. I brought tools. David disconnected the GPS module. He's good with electronics. Then we drove home. And the work badge, why keep it? For the first time, Nicole's expression changed slightly, almost a smile. I wanted something to remember, something real. Proof it happened. Chen felt sick. Nicole had kept the badge as a trophy, a souvenir of what she'd done. Nicole, why did you do this? Why hurt Brian? Nicole tilted her head. I didn't plan to hurt him. I just wanted company, someone to talk to. But he panicked. He tried to run. He threatened to call the police. I couldn't let him do that. So you killed him to avoid getting caught? I protected myself. Chen saw it now. Nicole's complete lack of empathy. Her inability to understand the weight of what she'd done. Brian was not a person to her. He was an inconvenience. A problem to solve. The psychiatric evaluations had warned about this. Antisocial personality disorder. Lack of remorse. Inability to connect emotionally with others. Nicole had hidden it well enough to function in society. But underneath, she was empty. "What about Kyle Jensen?" Chen asked. "Why did you take his hotel key?" "I wanted to see what was in his room. I was curious. I went there one night after he checked out. The key still worked. There was nothing interesting. I kept the key anyway. I don't know why. Maybe I thought it would be useful someday. And it ended up in Brian's car. It must have fallen out of my pocket when I was searching his car. I didn't notice until later. The pieces fit together now." Nicole had taken David's credit card. She had placed the orders. She had used her brother's house as a trap. She had lured Brian inside. When he tried to escape, she had made sure he never would. Then she had kept his badge, a memento of her crime. "Nicole, do you understand what you did? Brian Morelli was 18 years old. He had a mother who loved him. He had a future. You took that away." Nicole looked at Chen blankly. "I understand people think that, but I don't feel it the same way you do. Do you feel anything?" "I feel relief that this is over. I've been waiting for someone to figure it out. 8 years is a long time to carry a secret." Chen stood up. She could not be in the room with Nicole anymore. She walked out without another word. Later that day, officers executed a search warrant at 1847 Riverside Manor Drive. David Harrington was arrested for accessory to murder and obstruction of justice. He confessed immediately. He led investigators to the basement. The concrete floor in the far corner was exactly as Nicole described. Newer than the rest, slightly different color. A forensic team brought in ground-penetrating radar. The scan showed a distinct anomaly beneath the concrete. Human remains. It took 2 days to carefully remove the concrete. On April 23, 2024, they found Brian Morelli. His body had been remarkably preserved by the concrete seal. The lack of oxygen had slowed decomposition significantly. His wallet was still in his pocket. His Antonio's pizza uniform was intact. The thermal bag with the pizzas had been placed beside him. Chen called Maria Morelli. "Mrs. Morelli, we found your son. I'm so sorry." Maria was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke quietly. "Where?" "In the basement of the house, where he went that night. He never left." "Did he suffer?" Chen chose her words carefully. "The medical examiner believes it was quick. I can't give you details, but it was not prolonged." "Who did it?" "Nicole Harrington. David's sister. She's confessed. She'll spend the rest of her life in prison." Maria's voice cracked. "Why? Why my son?" "She said she wanted company. She lured him inside. When he tried to leave, she couldn't let him go." "I'm sorry. There's no good reason. There's no sense to it." Maria wept. 8 years of not knowing. 8 years of hoping he might still be alive somewhere. Now the hope was gone, but at least there were answers. The trial began in December 2024. Nicole Harrington pleaded guilty to second-degree murder as part of her agreement. She showed no emotion as the judge read the charges. She stood with her hands clasped, staring straight ahead. Maria Morelli gave a victim impact statement. She stood at the podium, looking directly at Nicole. "You took my son. You kept him in that basement for 8 years while I searched, while I begged for answers, while I lay awake every night wondering if he was cold, if he was scared, if he was calling for me. You let me suffer. You felt nothing. I hope you spend every day of the rest of your life in that prison knowing what you did. Even if you can't feel it, I hope the knowledge haunts you." Nicole looked back at Maria. Her expression was empty. The judge sentenced Nicole to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. She would be 64 years old before she could even apply. The judge noted her complete lack of remorse and stated his doubt that she would ever be released. David Harrington received 8 years for being an accessory after the fact and obstruction of justice. His attorney argued that he had been terrified and manipulated by his sister. The judge showed some mercy, but noted that David's silence had prevented Maria from having closure for 8 years. Kyle Jensen was not charged with any crime related to Brian's disappearance, but he was charged with credit card theft for taking David's card initially. He received 2 years probation and community service. His life had been destroyed by the investigation. He lost his job. His wife divorced him. He moved out of state to start over. Maria Morelli buried her son in May 2024, 8 years and 6 months after he disappeared. The funeral was small. Brian's friends from college attended. His former co-workers from Antonio's Pizza came. Kyle Jensen sent flowers but did not attend in person. Chen stood in the back of the church. She had closed the case. But closure felt hollow. Brian was still gone. Nicole showed no remorse. David had saved himself by covering for his sister. None of it brought Brian back. After the service, Maria approached Chen. Her eyes were red, but clear. "Thank you, Detective, for not giving up, for finding him. I wish I could have found him sooner. You found him. That's what matters. I can stop searching now. I can stop wondering. I can remember him as he was." Maria handed Chen a photograph. Brian in his Antonio's Pizza uniform, smiling. Young. Full of hope. This is how I want to remember him. Not as a victim, not as a tragedy, just as my son, who worked hard, who cared about people, who wanted to make the world a little better. Chen took the photograph. "I'll remember him that way too." Maria nodded. She walked away to join the other mourners. Chen left the church and drove back to her office. She filed the final report on the case. Brian Morelli, deceased, homicide, perpetrator convicted, case closed. But as she typed the words, she thought about all the things that had to go wrong for this to happen. A lost credit card, a woman with no conscience, a brother too scared to do the right thing, a young man in the wrong place at the wrong time, the small things that add up to tragedy, the moments where everything could have gone differently if Kyle had not found that card, if Nicole had not been staying at David's house, if Brian had declined to help carry boxes. But that was not how it happened. The pieces fell into place exactly as they did, and Brian Morelli paid the price. Chen saved the report. She closed her laptop. She thought about Maria's words, remembering Brian not as a victim but as a person, someone who mattered, someone who was loved. That was all any of them could do now. Remember. The case of Brian Morelli was solved, but the cost was measured in years of grief, a life cut short, and a mother who would spend the rest of her days missing her son. Nicole Harrington was transferred to Logan Correctional Center. She adapted to prison life easily. She followed the rules, showed no behavioral problems. The guards noted she seemed more comfortable there than most inmates. Structure suited her. Isolation suited her. She never spoke about Brian Morelli. She never expressed regret. When asked by a prison psychologist if she thought about what she had done, she responded simply, "Sometimes. But it doesn't make me feel anything." David Harrington served his 8-year sentence. He was released in 2032. He moved to another state, changed his name legally. He never spoke publicly about his sister or what happened. He lived quietly, alone, carrying the weight of his choices. The mansion at 1847 Riverside Manor Drive was sold in 2025. The new owners tore down the house completely and built a new structure. They wanted nothing to do with the property's history. The basement where Brian died was filled in and paved over. No trace remained. Maria Morelli continued working as a nurse until she retired in 2028. She kept Brian's room exactly as it was for 2 more years. Then, slowly, she began to let go. She donated his clothes. She gave his books to the library. She kept only photographs in his college acceptance letter. She never remarried. She never had other children. Brian had been her world. When people asked if she had children, she always answered yes. One son. His name was Brian. Detective Emily Chen remained in the cold case unit. The Morelli case became the one she was known for, the one that reminded her why the work mattered. She kept Brian's photograph on her desk, a reminder that behind every cold case was a person, a family, a story that deserved to be told. On November 5th, 2032, 16 years after Brian disappeared, Maria visited his grave. She brought flowers. She sat on the grass beside the headstone and spoke to him. "I got justice for you, baby. She's in prison. She'll never hurt anyone else. I know that doesn't bring you back. But it's something. It's all I could do." The wind moved through the trees. Maria stayed until sunset. Then she drove home to the empty apartment where she had raised her son, where she had waited 8 years for him to come home. He never did. But at least now she knew why. At least now she could stop searching and start remembering. It was not the ending she wanted, but it was the only ending there was.